Hey guys, Deanna here with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. If you're anything like me, you're a bit overwhelmed by all the teeth whitening products on the market. This next sponsor has provided me with some very interesting facts to pass on to you. Fact number one, teeth whitening does not whiten your teeth. It removes the stains and restores the tooth to its natural color. Natural colors vary per person, but for most, it's an off-white or slightly yellowish undertone. Fact number two, teeth whitening does not damage teeth, but it does temporarily dehydrate. When dehydrated, the pores in the enamel are open and exposed. Open pores invite acids and sugars, which, as we all know, lead to tooth decay. Avoid or minimize acidic and sugary substance for at least 24 hours after whitening. Also, avoid staining substances as the teeth are more susceptible to restaining during this period. Fact number three, tooth sensitivity is the result of tooth dehydration. When the pores of the enamel are open, the teeth become dehydrated, exposing the nerve to the elements. As the tooth rehydrates, the sensitivity will dissipate. To accelerate the rehydration and curb sensitivity, use a post-whitening application known as remineralization or desensitizing gel. Fact number four, caps and veneers cannot be whitened because they do not have pores for the stains to latch to. Prior to having dental work, you should whiten your teeth, restoring them to their natural color, as the dentist will be color matching to your current shade. Fact number five, the key to teeth whitening is the delivery device. So long as a whitening product is a peroxide-based whitener, it will remove the stains. What differentiates one product from the next is the device that holds the whitening agent to the tooth without interruption. Whitening strips neglect the crevices and molars, and they slide on your teeth. Saliva floods the generic trays because they are bulky and do not create a seal. And that's something I used to use. So it's good to know this. And you likely did not know this, but LED lights are novelty items that add no benefit. You need a high output UV light only found at the dentist. Don't fall for the gimmick. If you insist on a light that does not work, get one on Amazon for under $15 or under $5, whatever. The number one whitening device recommended by dentists is a custom fitted tray. You can have your dentist make your trays for $300 to $500, or you can head on over to www.smilebrilliant.com and use their lab direct mail-in process for a fraction of the price you would pay at the dentist. Oh, and if you grind your teeth at night, you can also purchase the Smile Brilliant's custom fitted night guards, once again for a fraction of the price the dentist charge. Once again, that's www.smilebrilliant.com and use coupon code FREE for 30% off for an exclusive discount by Label Free Podcast. All right, you guys, happy teeth whitening. What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. I'm super excited. I have a very cool guest. He is a lot of fun. He's a barbecue enthusiast, a taco aficionado, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. Watch out. And he's a scuba diver, but he's also the founder of Storify Agency, Chief Mischief Maker, and author of How to Hack Humans. Please welcome Seth Erickson to the show. Seth, whoop, whoop. I'm loving the title of that book. Like I said before we started recording, I think that's going to be the title of the episode.
With the book, the reason it's titled How to Hack Humans is because I spend the first third of the book talking about the neuroscience behind storytelling. And the idea is that, the human brain is very similar to a computer. So we have short-term and long-term memory. That's like a RAM and hard drive. We have our conscious and our subconscious. So that's like your Windows and your DOS.
Yeah.
Or if you're a Mac person, that's your OS X and Unix. We have firewalls that are basically bias. And so the idea is what is it that helps write to that operating system? And what are the applications that run on the operating system? And really it's stories are the applications that run in our minds. Like every experience you have becomes a story, right? And so understanding how do we write to that operating system? How do we update, delete applications? Well, it's the art of storytelling. And so understanding how storytelling works is like being able to write in code into the operating system. So that's why it's called How to Hack Humans, just to clarify that point there.
No, I love that, and that's very interesting the way that that I can see the similarities. I
Mhm.
I run more on short term memory, long term memory these days, but I love it. I think that that's very ingenious in how you put that together, and just to kind of give people an example of what that how our brains operate, because I believe that. So how did that come about? So you before we started recording, you told me the story of your business, Storify Agency,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what you were doing prior to what you're doing now. Can you kind of go through that story again with the audience so that they understand what you
Sure.
do?
Yeah, so we ran a very successful web design agency. We kind of we were like prostitutes. Anybody who came to us and paid us money, we would provide services for them, and that worked for a while. But it really, uh, I wasn't really feeling like the business was doing all that it could do or should do. We were winning awards and we were making a ton of money, and that's great. But like I ultimately got into business because I believe in helping other people, and most businesses exist because they're solving a problem for a customer anyway. Um, so what happened was I was asking my customers questions about, um, well, we built you a new website. Are you getting more, form contacts? Are you getting more sales? Are you getting more traffic? How's your bounce rate? Like
Yeah.
any kind of basic metric. And usually the answer was no, but we're really happy with the design and we're really excited about it. And I'm like, but that's not moving the needle in your business.
Right.
Like I want to see you growing or seeing something better happen for you. Um, and and so I kind of started becoming disillusioned with what I was doing and was trying to figure out like, okay, the company needs to change. What is the next iteration of the company? And actually, it was a friend of mine who said, dude, you're a storyteller. And I
Yeah.
was like, great. How do you make money being a storyteller? I can make money as a designer.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make money as a storyteller. And he gave me this book called Story Wars by Jonah Sachs. And I read that book and it was like I got struck by lightning. And I was like, I want to know more about this whole storytelling thing.
Sure.
So um, I, like a complete freaking addict, was like on Audible doing the 3 credit pack, daddy needs a fix, like 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 every week. I think I personally raised Audible stock at least 10 or 12% in that year.
Oh wow.
Um, um, and I read over 50 books on storytelling. And what happened through reading those books was obviously I learned a lot about storytelling. And being a storyteller, there's no like college degree for storyteller, right? And
Yeah.
there's no, and in some organizations there is somebody that is a storyteller, or they manage the brand story, but it's not it's not like every company has that. So it was kind of a self exploration type thing. And in some of the books, not all of the books, people would bring up, oh, there's this neuroscience thing and this other neuroscience thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, neuroscience? I like brains.
Yeah.
Brains. So I went and read several hundred papers on the topic of neuroscience. And the irony about that is that these guys and gals are doing all this study on the brain, and look at all this amazing stuff that happens when people listen to stories, and
Yeah.
then they don't use storytelling to write their papers.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like guys, like come on, so anyway, I distilled a lot of that down into the book and
Okay.
just kind of took like the most salient points. Like there's a lot that's going on there, and then that's without even getting into the psychological side of storytelling. Um, so the reason I went down that path is it was like, okay, you read all these books and it's like, well, this is opinion, right? This is
Yeah.
what somebody thinks about the situation. But I wanted the science to say, but here's actually what's going on. Here's the factual part of storytelling. So I could kind of combine the two in the book and said, this isn't just my opinion. I'm not blowing smoke up everybody's ass,
Sure.
and so the first part of the book is really about that. The science. The second part is how do you tell a good story, and the third part is how do you apply it? Because that's the other thing I hate about a lot of business books is they give you a lot of theory,
Yeah. They
but
don't.
but
Yeah.
then it's like you need to hire me or my
Yeah.
company to do it, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to give pretty much everything away for free, and like you can read the book and put it down and start applying things like right away. So So that's kind of the path. And in writing the book and starting to see, so what we did was we do what a lot of startups do, is you test an idea in the
Sure.
marketplace. And so
Yeah.
we started taking what we were learning and going back to some of our oldest customers going, hey, we want to try some of the storytelling stuff that we're learning.
Yeah.
Okay, great, let's try that. So we're changing websites, we're rewriting emails, we're updating ads and different things like that. And we start seeing things like double the open rate for the industry standards, maybe 20%. We're seeing a
Yes.
40% open rate.
That's
We're
awesome.
seeing click-through rates that are usually supposed to be like around 1%. We're seeing like 7 and 8%, click-through rates. So we're like quadrupling and sometimes going even higher than that. And so we're like, okay, this shit works. So I guess we need to change our business around and start focusing on that. And not that we don't do design anymore, but it's really, about how do you tell a good story? What is your messaging? It's part copywriting, it's part art, but really story is a pattern. And
Yeah.
so there's a pattern that we want to follow here, and the brain picks up on that pattern and locks into it and is engaged by that, by having the right pattern. So
The pattern the same no matter what kind of story you're trying to tell.
Well, it's interestingly enough, you can tell stories in a lot of different ways. Like a tagline can be a story.
Sure.
I
Clickbait,
talk,
right? It can be
yeah.
clickbait.
Well, it can be clickbait, but like you can tell a short story, you can tell a long story, and where that story lives, what medium it's in, it's going to change, right? So you tell a story on a website, you've got more space, you can use more copy. You tell a story in an ad, you might want to, you need to take like the key points out, but you can't tell the full story, right? So
Yeah.
so there's bits and pieces, and it's kind of like a recipe. And
Sure.
sometimes you can do a bigger batch, and sometimes you want to do a half batch or a quarter batch, right? So so you got to kind of adjust for that. And but yeah, there's all different types of stories. I mean, like I said, I talk about taglines, I talk about the hero's journey, I talk about fables, parables, talk about Aesop's fables. That a lot of the fables that are in that book, like the tortoise and the hare, like
Yeah.
we still know today, even though that book is almost a couple thousand years old. So why do we still carry those stories and then share them with other people?
Right.
And part of it is because it's done in a story format first and foremost. The other thing is that we're being taught something, we're learning something from that story. And in learning something, the brain is always going, okay, how do I survive? How do I survive?
Sure. Yeah.
And so it picks up on that and goes, oh, there's something here that I need to learn so that I can continue to survive.
What is good, everyone? Deanna here with Label Free Podcast. Autumn is in the air, the pumpkins are in the patch, and our friends at Manscaped are here to make sure your man doesn't carve his pants pumpkins when he's grooming, if you know what I mean. Make sure he's keeping things fresh this fall with the leaders in male grooming and their brand new 4th edition performance package. Ladies, do we really want to cuddle up with a dude who isn't trimmed? I know I don't. My man's keeping it tight. Get him to take the leap into fall with Manscaped. Help him join the 2 million men worldwide using Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code LABELFREE20. Again, go to manscaped.com and use the code LABELFREE20 for 20% off and free shipping. I mean, kudos to you for completely changing and re-strategizing your business model and how you can't take care of your customers. You could have just kept going and doing web design, but you wanted to see something that translated for your customers, which is great. And especially this day and age where we are so inundated with just social media and clickbait and just all these different things, that finding a solution for your customers where they can see that return is very important. I know for myself, I'm always trying, just for the podcast, I'm always trying to do new things, my newsletters, and just trying to update my website all the time just so that I can continue to get that engagement. And so I think, so for someone like me, let's give like an example for the audience. So anybody that's out there that's looking to increase your engagement, get that return. So if I was to engage you and say, hey, Seth, I'm needing some help with my business. So what would that look like if you were to take me on as a client? for my podcast, let's say.
Yeah. So would you consider your podcast to be a company or a personal brand?
Ooh, good question. It's a little bit of both because I
Mhm,
do have sponsors, I do have merchandise that I sell. I do have employees that I pay, based on for the work that they do for me. So it is a little bit of both because as a podcast host, I am a brand. I'm
mhm,
a public figure,
mhm.
so to speak. Yeah, and I gotta remind my fiance of that because sometimes he doesn't understand the whole social media thing and all that stuff. I'm like, I, hey, this is like a job. I have to continue to put myself out there so people would be
Mhm.
interested in wanting to listen to my show. Because who the fuck am I? Like I'm nobody. Like I am nobody. So I think he's starting to get it a little bit more. So for me, it's a little bit of both. So I don't
Mhm.
know, like if that answers the question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that you are the face of your company, and so in that there's a personal brand aspect, and so um, sometimes with that there's two stories. One is the story of the company, and one is the story of you
Right.
as the individual. But what you can do is you can kind of merge those two together, and so you can tell the personal story, and then the personal story leads into the company story.
Okay.
So you might say, I went through these experiences, this is what happened in life, I overcame these things, right?
Yeah.
um, like with a personal story, there's two things that I think that are really important. Is one is showing your flaws and showing that you're human, that you make mistakes, right? Because otherwise um, it doesn't come across as authentic.
Yeah.
Man, I can't
Yes, I
talk.
know what you meant. I don't even know if I can say it right now either.
Authentic. It doesn't come across as on authentically. No. Um,
Authentic.
so
Yes.
authentic, and so those are the human elements that people connect with, where
Yeah.
they can say, I've done that, I've made those mistakes, I've said that stupid thing or done that stupid
Yeah.
thing or made that bad decision, right? And that helps connect with you. So the other important point in a personal story is to say, and here's what I've learned, right? That puts you in the position of the mentor in this in the hero's journey. The hero quite often needs a mentor to help him or her overcome the challenges in their life. So by saying, I did these stupid things, I made these mistakes, but here's what I learned, I can help you overcome those things. That puts you in that kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hey Luke, I'll teach you how to be a Jedi, right? So then you can connect that to the company story and
Right.
say, and because of that, we have created this product or this service or this company to help you not make the same mistakes I did, to overcome those challenges, because I can understand how difficult they are. And I wanted to get you down the path further and faster, right? And so that's a very high level overview of how we
No,
would
that answers my
structure that
question.
story.
That
Yeah.
answers my question, and I think that's very helpful for the audience because I think that this day and age, it's very powerful. I mean, you see people that are telling their personal story and they're telling the raw guts of what they've been through, and that's why I started this podcast, was because
Mhm.
I've been through a lot, and I think I've done a pretty good job. It could be better of telling my story and what brought me to where I'm today. And I went through some shit. I went through
Mhm.
some shit, but at the end of the day, I did not let that define me. And that's why I created Label Free Podcast, because I could have let those terrible things define me, hold me back, make me shrivel up and shrink as an individual. But no, instead, I let that help me grow and become who I am today. And, that's why I started it. So I love it when people, that's why I never have any like pre questions or anything for my guests, because I want it to come out in the authenticity of our
Yes.
conversation. I said it. Yeah.
Yay.
Oh my goodness, we're having fun. It's Sunday, y'all. Because I don't know when it's gonna be released, but it's Sunday for us. So we're like recovering from the weekend. I had a wedding last night, so yeah, I'm operating. This is coffee. um, but I love that. So where can people find you, reach out to you if they are interested in hiring you for your services? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you go to www.storyfyagency.com, Storyfy is STORIFY agency. Most people know how to spell agency.
Well, you hope
And,
so.
yeah,
You never
hopefully,
know.
hopefully. And I also, I have the book that you talked about in the beginning is on Amazon. It's called How to Hack Humans: Storytelling for Startups. But really, if you're a small business, you're an entrepreneur, you're a personal brand, whatever, the principles in the book will apply to you. I just talk to startups because that's my niche,
Sure.
niche, whatever. Um, and for listeners of the show who might, be interested in the book but aren't really sure, if you go to storyfyagency.com/label free, you can download the first chapter of the book.
Oh, I
That
love that.
talks,
I'm writing that down.
yeah, it talks about the neuroscience stuff, so you can kind of like understand like what is actually happening inside the brain when you tell a good story.
Yeah.
And there's some like just let me give you one of the things I think is fascinating. So they did this study. They hooked up this storyteller to like I don't know, diodes or whatever, connected stuff to his head.
Yeah.
And we were looking at his brain waves. And then they had an audience of like 500 or 1,000. I can't remember what the number was. And they hooked up all those people so they could see their brain waves. And when the storyteller starts telling the story, um, over time, everybody in the audience, their brain waves synced up with the storyteller. So by the end of the story, everybody in the audience, including the storyteller, are on the same wavelength, if you
I love
will.
that. Okay.
And that's like some weird science fiction, like fascinating stuff. So
No, but it
then,
makes sense though, because it's like it's bringing out that empathy from people.
well,
It's,
yeah,
you know,
so one of the things that I like to point out is that if you tell a good story, you will connect with your audience on a deeper level, right? Like that connection will be created through the storytelling. It's not just saying words, right? And you're connected. It's like the way you say those words, how you craft that story, will allow them to sync up with you and basically get on the same page with you. So that's why we use storytelling, because it's like you can connect at a deeper level with your audience. You can be remembered better by your audience because the story that they're engaged in will move from that short-term memory into long-term memory, and then they'll remember you. And and that's how you build a brand over time, because you build that relationship with people.
I love that. That's awesome. Um, so before we start saying, and I will put the links all in the show notes, you guys, so you can reach out to him, download that free chapter if you're interested. If you are a startup, and I'm sure even if you're not so much of a startup but needing to rebrand and tell a better story, I'm sure Seth is willing to help. I always like to ask my guests for any last words of wisdom or advice they'd like to leave with the audience.
Yeah. So so one of the things that I think is interesting is that we all tell stories,
Yeah.
right? Just like we all breathe. But understanding how to tell a good story makes you a better storyteller, instead of just doing something naturally. Like some people are better at telling stories than the others naturally, but we can all learn how to become better at storytelling when we understand the mechanics and the ingredients and how it all works. And so if you can do that, it doesn't just help in your business, it helps in your relationships with your friends and with your spouses and your kids and so it helps in a lot of other areas, just not just in business. So that would be my piece of advice, is even if you're like, well, why should I do this? It's like, well, because you can connect with at a deeper level with everybody around you better. So
I love that. Yes, you are right. My mother is a great storyteller. Like she's awesome at it. She embellishes quite a bit, but she's a great storyteller. It's like hit or miss for me. Like let's say I can sometimes tell a good story, not always, but occasionally I'm good at it. But I've had to refine telling my story over the years, and I've gotten better, progressively
mhm,
better. But yeah,
mhm.
I'm very curious to read this book because I want to learn how to hack humans.
Yeah. Well, and let me just give you one last tidbit that I think you'll find
Okay.
fascinating. So the book, I'm a big movie fan, and I was like, I want a soundtrack for my book. And
Yeah.
so I went through and put together a Spotify playlist and a YouTube playlist, and each chapter has a song that goes with it.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
it either captures the mood of the chapter, or it relates to what I'm talking about in the chapter. And so if somebody has Spotify, you can just type "How to Hack Humans" and you'll find the playlist. But I've never seen anybody else do that. And
Yeah.
the other thing is the book is written to be funny, right? Like
Yeah,
I wanted
right.
you or anybody else to be entertained while they're reading the book, not just going, oh, geez, here's another dry, boring ass business book. I wanted people to be entertained while they're learning. I wanted to be that like that teacher you had at school that was like, I love going to their class because they always make what I'm learning really fun and engaging.
Yeah.
And so, so yeah. Anyway, there's my plug.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. A playlist to your book. That's fantastic. Seth, you have been an awesome guest. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please keep us posted on any new projects or new books that you might have coming out because we'd love to share it with the audience. We'd love to have you back. So appreciate all the knowledge that you dropped, you guys. Please don't go check him out. Go get the book, How to Hack Humans, Learn How to Be a Better Storyteller, and get that playlist because I think that you'll really enjoy that. This is your host, Deanna Kumpel with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, follow, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.